Yes.
So let's call this meeting to order at 5:30. So we'll start off with roll call. Alejandro?
Here.
Eric?
Here.
Joey's
Here.
Tanya?
Here.
Me? I'm here. Monica?
Here.
Dane?
Here.
Alex?
Here.
Aubrey?
Here.
Martin? Excused. Lucy's here. Churchies? Excused.
Oh, she's on the phone.
Oh, she's on the phone. Who's that?
I don't know if she talked to you about it.
What was that?
Kirsty?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No, what did you say that we couldn't hear?
Oh, I don't know if she said that she talked to you guys about
Yeah,
it. Okay.
yeah.
Alright, so
I was making sure you didn't say something.
Greg's not here. Jessica, and then Brandon's not here. And Josh?
Here.
So look over the agenda and then I'll be looking for a motion of approval. Eric?
I move to approve the agenda.
Moved by Eric, seconded by Dane. Okay. Now look over the minutes, the previous minutes, and then, Eric?
Point of order, we need to have a vote.
Oh, no, bear with me. So,
There's a motion in a second. Any discussion?
any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? So the agenda is approved. Now go over the minutes, last week's meeting, and then make a motion. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 6, 2019 meeting.
Moved by Eric, seconded by Alex. Any discussion? Approved? Deny? Abstaining? Aye. So, minutes approved. Now on to reports. I only have one report. Hopefully next week we will be meeting for the subcommittee. Some of you who volunteered will meet next week. I met with Alex today, just kind of discussing some topics. Okay.
Are you going to send out a doodle poll to gather everyone's time?
If Aubrey could send one out, that would be great. So yeah, she would send one out and then look for best time, hopefully by Friday. So that's my report. Advice.
I know you'll all be disappointed to know the report I have is that we will not need an extra meeting this quarter. I know we sent out a doodle poll to see what times would be available. But based on the request that Lacey was able to go through and process and move forward, we'll have 22 total this quarter, and we will be able to get them through based on kind of the scheduling. They may be long meetings next week and the following week, but they will fit within our time frame and keep us from having to add an additional meeting outside of that. So we should be able to get through them all.
Okay, so Brandon wanted me to make sure I go over where we're at financially with our supplementals. So, like Joey had mentioned, this is including all of the S&A requests that have been approved. Well, I'm sorry, approved to be viewed at the S&A committee. And so I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware that as of today, the total ask is $203,000, almost $204,000 of the $300,000 supplemental. So on the docket today for approval is a total of about $38,000. And so the pending requests that are on the docket for presentations and votes is about $162,000. So he really just wanted to let you know that overall there's clearly quite a few requests for this fall quarter. And so if all approved, that would really only leave roughly about $100,000 left for the remaining of the year. The other, did anybody have any questions about the financial status currently? Okay, great. The other report that I want to make sure everybody's aware of is the approved or recommended requests that went up to PBAC for approval did get approved at this week's PBAC's meeting. So those funds are able to be released to those individuals when those expenses are appropriately to be reimbursed.
So now we'll open up the floor to public comment. Is there any public comment from anyone? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business. Supplemental funding request voting for 2007 American Geophysical Union Conference for $2,994. Is there any discussion? Tanya,
Motion to allot the full $2,994.
motion to approve by Tanya, seconded by Dane. Any discussion? None. All those for? Seven. Against? Abstaining? Motion passes. Moving on to 2008 Big Band Tour of Vietnam and Thailand for $11,910. Is there any discussion? Dave?
It seems like a pretty good opportunity for the students that were chosen to go to display their talents on a global scale with professional musicians. That's a pretty good opportunity. I don't think none of you guys have went in the past, so it's brand new to y'all. So that's pretty cool. I motion to allot the full $11,910.
Motion by Dane to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Tanya. Any discussion? All those for? Against? Abstaining?
And with that, since it was a tie, you're the tiebreaker, so. Yeah. You're subject to city change.
It's this one.
That's that one.
I am for it, so the motion passes. Now moving on to 2009, the Ushley Conference for $23,559.20. Is there any discussion? Eric?
I would like to make a motion to approve $23,560.
Motion to approve by Eric. Is there a second? Seconded by Monica. Any discussion? None. All those for? Against? Abstaining? Motion passes. Alright. On to new business, supplemental funding request presentations. The first one is 2010 American Conference for Irish Studies for $1,808.22.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Katie Owens, and I am a second-year master's student in the history department. And I'm here to request roughly $1,800 to attend the American Conference for Irish Studies, or ACES, as I'll be referring to it, their international conference in Houston in April. So ACES is an international conference, and it's the largest of its kind in North America. It's an interdisciplinary conference, so it brings together scholars of anthropology, music, theater, English, history, political science, etc. This conference would be a great opportunity for me to network with not only other graduate students, but also other scholars in my field, especially since we only have one historian who does what I do in our department, and so it would be a great opportunity to get some feedback from a broader environment. The keynote at this conference is going to be Mary Robinson, who was the first female president of Ireland, and so that would be something I think would be really wonderful to be able to hear her thoughts on a lot of current issues that will be discussed there. In October, I had the opportunity to go to the Midwest Regional ACES Conference in Omaha. I was one of only 2 history grad students that presented at this conference, and I was well received. I got good feedback, and I was encouraged, if able, to go on and present at the national conference. The theme for the national conference is Borders and Borderlands, which is pertinent today, especially with the Brexit controversy that Ireland and the UK are facing. And my work speaks directly to issues regarding the border. I am a historian of the early 1920s, and so I'm looking at the time period in which partition was implemented in Ireland by the British government, dividing it into North and South. And I see a lot of parallels between the issues that were raised when partition was first implemented and now with the Brexit controversy. Questions of inter-island trade, how would a hard border versus a soft border affect that? Questions of Irish identity, are you British and Irish? Can you be both? Are you just Irish? That sort of thing. Specifically, what I study and what the focus of my master's thesis is on the Belfast boycott, which is a protest that ran from August of 1920 until January of 1922. It happened in July of 1920. Several thousand Catholic nationalist workers were kicked out of their jobs in Belfast in the north of Ireland, and in retaliation, nationalists in the south started a boycott to boycott all goods and services and banks from the north. And one thing that really drew me to this project and that I think is really interesting and really important is that even though this blockade was this massive undertaking by the southern government in Ireland, it's almost non-existent in accounts of the revolution. If you look at books and historical works talking about this time period in Irish history, it's almost non-existent. Sometimes it's mentioned in passing, if it's even mentioned at all. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to study it, is because it's something that's really important that happened that affected not only partition, but also the role of women and the roles of sectarianism between North and South in Ireland. And it's something that's missing largely from the historical record. Another reason that I wanted to study it is because it allows us to look at the unique role that women contributed to the Irish Revolution. This is a time period, of course, in the early 20s where women are just starting to find a voice in politics. And not only were women expected to participate economically through the boycott that I study, as consumers, like they were expected to buy Irish goods, support Irish manufacturing, but they also took on a very rare role in that women were given a lot of control over the boycott itself, both its implementation and its organization. And these aren't elite women, these are ordinary women, everyday women who are consumers, who are going in and raiding shops, who are getting fines from business owners who aren't adhering to the boycott. And their story hasn't been told, and I think that this is a good opportunity through my research to tell their story and then hopefully share it with the larger Irish Studies community. I'm planning on going on after I finish my master's degree here to get a PhD, and this conference would allow me to get feedback from other scholars in the field and start establishing a lot of professional ties and networks that I will need moving forward in the field. As I said, I plan on using a lot of the feedback that I receive from scholars, and then I will be sharing what I receive with the larger CW community in two ways. One, I plan on presenting at Source in May, so presenting to faculty, students, and staff about what I've learned and what I've incorporated from this conference into improving my thesis and making it the best I can be. And secondly, I've arranged with the chair of my department to lecture on this subject in spring in a Gen Ed history course for world history from 1815 to the present. So like I said, that would be an undergraduate course and give me an opportunity to talk about this subject in more detail. At the end of the day, I just think it is really important to showcase the work that's being done at Central to a larger audience outside of just the state or the Pacific Northwest. I think that our students are our best ambassadors, and being able to go to a conference, especially one of this magnitude and this prestige, gets to show that Central and Central students are doing cutting-edge work or doing work that relates to present-day political issues that are affecting people all around the world. And so I would be really grateful for the opportunity to promote CWU as well as our master's programs in Houston if given the opportunity. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
So now there will be 10 minutes for questions. Is there any questions?
Knowing that you're going to be presenting your paper there, what was the process like to get there? Was it you had to submit, or was it building off of the regional one, or how do you get to present at this conference?
So there is a panel that if I get funded, I'll be presenting with two other people. So the other person is my graduate advisor, Dr. Jason Kinner, and then the other person is a PhD student at Marquette University. And so we would be presenting a piece on Northern Ireland and sectarianism surrounding the border. And so her work is on sports and the border. His is on the way in which the border is discussed politically, and then mine kind of ties it all together because I'm looking at both the political, economic, and then social aspects of sectarianism on the border.
Did you all have to submit like a proposal?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any more questions?
Not necessarily a question, but it was nice to actually hear a little bit about your work. A lot of what we hear is, like I'm going to this conference and I'll see these things, but to hear a little bit more essentially about what interests you specifically.
Well, any opportunity I have to talk about my work, I'm like there, so.
And I know you put this in here, but I'm just, it sounds like you're planning to present at least a portion of your thesis at Source.
Yes, definitely not the whole thing. We'd be here all day.
Yeah.
But I think that especially just because Brexit is such a big issue, that's something I definitely want to talk about. And also the role of women, just because that's something that hasn't been looked at before, and it's something that we need to be looking at more as scholars.
Are there any more questions? Seeing none, we'll moving on. Thank you. We'll vote on next respect. Okay, moving on to 2011 Music Business Clinic from CWU Gen for $1,400.
Hi, I'm
live recorded interview between Dr. Samples and Harry Schnipper. And Harry Schnipper is very renowned in the music industry. He owns Blues Alley, which is one of the longest continuously run jazz clubs in America. He puts on, he programs one concert for every day of the year. So he's a music business giant. So he will be making a video for educational, non-commercial distribution. So this video will serve as an educational asset for the university. So when we go to the National Gen Conference, we can take a little snippet of the video to kind of show off Central.
The reason why we want to do this is music business, and specifically in our department, music business is severely underrepresented, and it's a very important thing to know about. There's one class offered every other spring, which Dr. Samples will be doing the interview. He runs, and this class the information is just invaluable. So to have this opportunity to bring Mr. Schnipper in and interview him about all of this knowledge is kind of this rarity. This is information that we desperately need, as well as a connection that is going to serve us in the future. Like she was saying, through Gen. Gen is something that we go to every year. We are like the flagship chapter at Gen, and our school is really well known for just showing up and always killing it at this conference. So we'd like to do that again.
So he will be needing $1,000 for his 2 clinics that he will be giving, and for travel expenses for him. A filming and editing cost for $200, and then we will be providing $75 for him for his meals.
To clarify, is the request for $1,275? So I know with the breakdown, it's $1,275, but I think up there was initially $1,400.
I think it should be 1,200.
Fine.
Is the funding for, I see that it's clinician fees and filming, is it for getting this person here to go ahead and do the interview and agree to be videotaped? Because I also heard you say something about clinics.
Or
Is that-
it's like the interview and then
So it's
tomorrow.
all of it. It's travel, his clinics, and then any like hotel costs.
Okay, so he's not just coming here to do an interview, but there are clinics with students that are going to be going on? I'm just trying to get a sense.
There's going to be a master. It's
Or yeah, it's a more.
It's like a master class / workshop where he's going to be with us talking about his situation and how we can get in on that.
Who's invited to the workshop and clinic pieces of it? Is it open to all students?
Open to every student.
And has there been advertising that's going out, or how do you expect those students to attend, I guess I would say?
We do sort of like we target our communication towards our music students. Since this is jazz oriented, we always put up stuff in the music building, and we have Facebook, and I don't know if it's on the Gen website, but we usually have stuff on our website that talks about our events, so it's pretty specifically targeted, but it's usually very well attended by the audience.
Who will be doing the filming and editing for this?
It will be a student. We tried with, what was the name? Give me 1 second. We tried to reach out to public affairs to do it, but they were kind of unresponsive, so we hired a student. So he'll be editing and setting up sound and all of that.
And just to clarify, the student is like really well qualified. He does marching band video.
Alright.
How many students do you think will be coming to this?
Were there any other costs, outside of this, or, was there any funding from the music department, knowing obviously can benefit the students in the music department?
Just the 75 from Jen.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, to piggyback off of how many people are attending, it's going to be recorded just for everyone to see, and it will be put on YouTube.
Dave?
Is the recorded part just the interview, or are you recording clips as well?
I know for sure the interview.
I don't think we record the master class. I don't actually say that, I don't know that.
I bet it will go on the Gen website.
Yeah, it would go on the Gen website, which all of our students have. If you're a Gen member, then you have access to all of the resources on that page.
Are any of the attendees going to receive any academic or credit attending the workshop?
There should be scans. If you attend concerts, then you get a scan.
But not the master class.
So the event's happening today and tomorrow? Okay, so has the admission fee already been paid? Or is that like after, is that?
I think we took it out of our account, but we're hoping to get paid first.
Just for a point, when those types of things happen, they get paid after their service has been completed.
Cool.
But we have done things in the past to reimburse club accounts in a similar fashion.
So that's how this would play out, this.
Yes.
Josh?
Maybe the new guy question, but what happens if this doesn't get approved? Who pays for this?
We do.
Yeah.
Out of the club account?
Yeah.
And is there enough in the club account to cover it? Because it looked like it was listed at 300 and some bucks. How does that work? Is it just going to a deficit
Okay,
or?
so I guess is there a good advice? Yeah. So Jen, if it's okay to say, Jen hosts a lot of really important events for the music department. We're the underground jazz degree. So we send people to the Gen conference, the Jazz Educators Network conference, which happens somewhere in the United States every year. And we met Harry Schnipper there, and he had been very interested in coming out, which was kind of a huge deal for us. He doesn't just go anywhere. And so he wanted to come out, and we were like, we would love to have you, and we figured out a way to set him up here financially and interact with our students who are also really excited. We would cover it, or somehow I guess, and figure out a way to do that. But we also send people to Gen in the winter. Yeah, and so we would be back here asking for money to go to Gen to continue this basically stream of connections that we get to bring people in to talk with our students like quarterly.
So just a point, for club accounts, they do not go in the negative. So in order for them to be able to expense out, they have to have funding within their club account. So just as that's a general statement for all clubs.
So again, the question, how was this paid for if there's only $300 in the club account?
Maybe that's how much.
So
they
that
left.
tends to be probably more of a timing issue. So they can deposit money and have it available at that moment. And so when they filled out this packet, which was, we probably have to look at the date, which was quite a while ago, that was probably their balance. But they have dues and other sorts of activities that they, and they probably are more experts on explaining what those activities are. But the club accounts are really money in and money out, basically constantly.
So for this specific expense, did that come mostly from dues or fundraising, or where did that money come from?
I think.
Well, I know we were originally going to request from SAS, but we were recommended to request here.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so big.
The whole SAS thing got shut down. So that is where we would have asked for our money. But
Okay.
If I'm understanding this right, when this request was made, was there $1,400 in the account?
Yes,
There was, okay.
I'm very sure about it because we had to bring over the gear. Yeah, we already brought another group over and we had to do those expenses as well.
Right.
Pending approval or lack thereof, and there's only $306 and you have to come up with that money. Have you been in communication with the music department to find a way to fund this if we decide not to fund it? I guess is my question. So you as students aren't coming up with that amount of money to pay this gentleman his fare and all that assumption.
We have not talked with anyone in the
Just clarify, and I don't know if this is but this expense hasn't been paid yet.
That is correct. Services cannot be paid until they're completed. So my next question would be, where are you with the status of the contract for this individual?
Joe, the president of the Gen Club, is currently with him now, giving a presentation.
So I guess my question is, do you know if the individual, if Harry has signed the contract?
I know it went through like contracting, but I'm not aware of this.
So, what that means is, just a kind of a general statement, is a contract will be signed, and then after it is signed and completed, there is a check that gets mailed out to the individual after the services are completed. So, it is pretty normal to kind of have a contract signed and have an individual here, and then to have the expense actually hit, you know, it could even be a week or so even after the event.
Great, but is there someone in the contract process who's approving those that make sure that the money is there too? Is that a?
Yes. So in order for a contract to be started, they would have had to encumber the funds, which might be why there is a reduced amount in their club account, but it could be also a timing issue as well. So in order to, for our accounting office to send over that contract, they have to secure the funds through the club.
Any more questions?
Are you going straight to the presentation after this?
Yeah, we're hoping to, yeah.
Okay, no more questions.
Seeing none, we'll be voting on this next. Moving on to 2012 Association of Writers and Writing Programs Conference for $935.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for having me. This presentation is, as you can see, for the Association of Writers and Writing Programs Conference for 2020, which is strangely referred to as AWP, even though there are two W's. So, you know, we're not perfect at writing, I suppose. But this conference is essentially the largest conference that's specifically for writers in North America every year. This is basically where everybody goes. People from Roxane Gay to Joyce Carol Oates to Colson Whitehead. Every writer who has any sort of connection to literary presses or writing programs is at this conference. It draws more than 10,000 people, most of whom are writers or related to writing programs every single year. This upcoming year it's going to be in San Antonio. At that conference, in addition to writers, there are all of the major MFA and PhD programs in creative writing are in attendance. They have booths in what they call the book fair, which is basically just a giant convention center space. All of the major presses are there, and many of the indie presses in the country have tables and booths and editors available. And also, most of the country's leading literary magazines are there as well. So in addition to all the stuff at the book fair, where all these people are generally available and mingling, there are also hundreds, I think last year there was something like 150 different panels and presentations and workshops taking place over these 4 or so days. So really like a lifetime worth of learning. You can't possibly get to everything, but you have the opportunity to go to any of these panels or workshops that you choose to while you're there. And also the sort of like renowned writers who are doing these presentations and giving these workshops are also just mingling around all the time. And it's sort of one of those weird spaces where if you run into, say, Colson Whitehead at the book fair, you have the chance to just talk to him, which is a really weird space. With people of this level of literary accomplishment and fame, you don't really get a chance to ask questions directly to people like this every day. So sort of what we would be doing there is attending panels, taking workshops, having a chance for professional development at things like that, but also having a chance to meet editors at presses. Last year, this conference was in Portland, so we were able to drive down, which was really convenient for us. We didn't have to request any money beyond what we got from Career Services and the English department. And at that conference, I actually met an editor for a literary magazine published out of University of Utah Press. And through that interaction, I was actually able to get work published in their magazine directly because of that connection. So being at this conference led directly to publication for some of my poetry through last year's conference. In addition to that, from the learning opportunities, we're partnering with a number of professors in the English department to find ways to connect with their students after the conference so that we're not just sort of hoarding this information and keeping it for ourselves, but actually being able to share it with undergraduate students in the English program. Also, Leslie and I probably should have said this earlier, but it's myself and Leslie Call who will be going. We're both grad students in the English program here. And we both teach English 101 and interact with a number of undergraduate students through sort of literary events and writing groups. So this is a chance for us to bring that back to our own students and people that we know in the department. And let's see. Also last year, because it was in Portland, Central was able to have a booth of its own. We have a growing online creative writing MA program, and also a creative writing undergraduate program that's offered entirely online. And so it was a great chance for us to sort of just spread the word about that program. This year, I don't believe that we will actually be able to have a booth for the department because it's so far away that the English department can't actually physically get that space and send a number of professors to the program. So this is a great chance for Leslie and I to be the face of the creative writing program. When we really can't afford to do that officially, we can sort of be there to show people that we still have a presence and share this online program with people who maybe are looking for a creative writing program but can't relocate somewhere. So how this all actually breaks down, I have sort of the cost for one person and the cost for two. This is the actual cost. This is not necessarily what we're requesting, but this is how much our travel costs. So you can see we've got the flights here at $375 each, a hotel room in San Antonio. This is average, probably a little more than that. I think I had that at about $110, $115 a night. The registration is $55. This is a little bit of money here is just budgeted in for the gas it takes to get to SeaTac, any rides that we need to get from the airport in San Antonio to the downtown area, things like that. This is based off of the non-high cost meals per diem that Central has specifically for San Antonio. So you can see this is the sort of total cost would be about $2,200 for this trip. You've got a fancy visual breakdown if you're more of a visual learner. Yeah, so you can see that most of this is going to the flight and the hotel, but those other elements take up a little bit of the cost here. However, we've tried our best to sort of reduce this. We are sort of broke grad students, we don't have a lot of money, but we want to like contribute however we can. So we're sharing a hotel room, which saves us a ton of money off the bat, really cuts our costs significantly by $380. by sort of packing some of our own food and trying to get grocery store food and make stuff on our own, we're able to basically cut the per diem in half by sort of sharing one person's per diem. And we've registered early, so we've already saved a tiny bit more, which helps. So really what we're looking for, we've already secured, I guess I can flip over here for that. We've already secured $500 from SAS through the New Funds Council. We are requesting $200 from Career Services, and you can see there the reductions that I pointed out at the top. So really what we need from S&A is $935 just to fill what's left over there and help cover the extra costs. And I think that's everything. So thanks. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer as best that I can.
Jessica.
What was the personal amount you're saying?
Oh, yes. So $605 reduction. We're not actually spending most of that, but our attempts to sort of knock down the cost. Yeah.
And technically, if you're packing food, like that is a cost, you're gonna be buying those things.
Thank you.
Tanya.
You said that you both are presenting?
We are
Or-
not
okay.
presenting, no.
But you're gonna be the informal face of Central. Okay.
Yeah, we won't, I don't, and I have to check with the professors about this, but last that I'd heard, we're not gonna be able to have a booth ourselves, so we'll sort of have to, you know.
Have to wear your Central gear or
Yeah. I'll be proselytizing every chance I have to anybody who will listen.
Josh.
If you'd like any recruiting materials, let me know.
Oh, sure, that would actually be fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other student going, Leslie, is Leslie female or male?
She's a woman.
Is it allowed for them to share hotel room, male and female? Is that helpful?
I mean, there is not necessarily a university policy against that
Okay.
currently. As of today, I don't know when someone's watching this on the recording.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on this next week. Moving on to 2014 for the AMA Annual Conference from the CWU Marketing Association for $21,488.
A bit of a tech issue, so just be hanging there with us for 1 second and we'll get it all set up for you. Rebecca Robinson. I am the Vice President of Finance for the Central Washington University Marketing Association. I'm also majoring in Business Administration with a specialization in marketing and on the incoming side of a cold. So if you can't hear me, I'll come stand by you to make it a little louder.
And my name is Victor. I'm the club senate for Central Washington Marketing and my major is leadership. So we are representing the Central Washington Marketing Association Club, and we would like to travel to MMA Collegiate Conference with about 1,800 members in our club. And so the purpose for, so the AMA offers opportunities for our club members to interact and engage and to learn with other students across the country and marketing leaders from various industries. So the conference will be held at New Orleans, Louisiana. It's a 3-day event, so March 13th, March March 12th to 14th, so the 3-day event. And so we would depart March 11th and return on March 14th. And so as I stated earlier, we want our club members to take advantage of this opportunity because it benefits them. To those who attend it will benefit them in terms of expanding their professional network. So I assume that you guys are familiar with the term vetted. Anyway, vetted, there's 3 phases of vetted. First one is no, second is like, and the third one is trust. So for example, Rebecca would be one of the marketing leaders in that conference. So I would connect with her, engage with her. I want to know like what's her work experience or her business background. And so with that, perhaps we could have a conversation about the influence of marketing in a modern society or how society is pushing constant evolution. So it doesn't necessarily have to be specifically a job title or a job position, but just kind of just talk about marketing in general. And so we're leading to the second phase, which is like, and that's basically like building the mutual positive relationship where we can exchange contact, like a LinkedIn, email, and perhaps leaving her a good impression of myself. So for instance, she'd say, oh hey, Victor, he's eager to learn, he wants to know more about marketing and such. And so over time, that will lead to trust. And so that trust will come along, like if, for example, if her colleague is hiring and she could refer me, right? And so she would talk to her colleague, hey, Victor, I know this guy, he has a great work ethic. I've seen some of his project, I really think you should look into his work experience. And so that's where the trust belongs. Now mind you, vetted is not something, it's not automatic, nor is it a one-way approach. There's multiple ways to go about this. But the whole idea is that we want our members to, start building the building blocks in terms of getting to know and liking people from the AMA conference.
So we've been talking about AMA, and we kind of wanted to dive in a little bit deeper and tell you about what the conference kind of includes. When we refer to AMA, we're talking about the International Collegiate Conference held yearly by the American Marketing Association. It's a little bit shorter to just say AMA. This conference helps bring together college students from across the country as well as across the globe. Last year we were there as students from Ellensburg. There were students from UW there, students from Wisconsin, students from Puerto Rico. So literally this conference brings together students from everywhere to talk about what's going on in the marketing community, what is up and coming in the industry. We get to experience interactive sessions to learn about those things, to be part of that conversation, and also opportunities, like Victor mentioned, to grow relationships with leaders in the industry and with other students who are about to graduate and enter marketing.
So there are 3 major opportunities that AMA provides to students. The first one is hearing from industry leaders on their path to success. And so questions like what are their challenges, what are the obstacles, and how do they approach this obstacle, what are their dislikes or likes in that field. So we just want to get to know their story. And one thing unique about AMA is that they offer, for individuals and teams, they can compete. And so we plan on doing that as well. So with a competition that allows them to display their strengths or weaknesses, and therefore whatever they gain from that, they can add that to their strength on their professional skills. And lastly is that, like she mentioned, there are people all over the country, different universities will come there and present their project or best project or the recent project. And so as a club, we want to learn from them and how they approach their project. Or what was their preparation, what was their planning, what was the step, how did they communicate to their outside resource. So a question like that would really benefit from us, and maybe we can take those tactics and implement it to our club as well. So another benefit as well is that like I mentioned about vetting, it's like it would be so benefit after graduation for our club members because they can reconnect with those people that they met and ask questions like, hey, I'm interested in this specific job title, what is the interviewing process, how do I approach this, how long is this process going to take, and also, also part of the AMA, they cover a lot of topics that may not be presented in the College of Business, who knows, right? And And so whatever they gain from that, our club members can add that to their skills and present it to the community or the region or state, either before or after they graduate.
So why AMA? You might be thinking, why do you want to go all the way to New Orleans when maybe you could go to Seattle and talk to Amazon? AMA gives us the opportunity to talk to multiple giants in the industry. For example, last year Coca-Cola was there, and we got to talk to them about how they do their marketing, how they do their targeting, how they position the company to appeal to different audiences. We get to speak to different grad schools, how they're doing it. We get to hear from different chapters across the country, how they're getting involved in their community, how they're using their marketing skills that they're learning in the classroom and reinvesting those either into new members or into businesses in the community. It also helps us form industry relationships, again, with those already in the industry and those who are graduating and entering into it. So this is a little bit intimidating, but here are some of the topics that were covered last year at AMA. The right side is just general sessions that taught attendees how to do things like prove yourself once you enter that field, gave career advice, talked about resume building, looked at the future of marketing, where we're going next, the introduction of digital. And then on the left side, they also had some sessions that were led by other chapters, as I mentioned, covering things like membership recruitment and retention. And one of my favorites was actually one of the chapters did a session explaining how they had created and are running their own chapter marketing agency. So they created their whole business and actually used that as a source of revenue to bring that into the college, which then they could use to bring in speakers to attend conferences. And that's something that we're laying the foundation for now to look into the future to do for our own chapter. Again, a little intimidating, but this is our budget breakdown. The left side shows our revenue sources. Over the summer, we did fundraising at the Gorge, so 3 long weekends of 12-hour days, spending time working at the Gorge Amphitheater to raise money specifically for this trip. We also have club fund contributions that we're putting in from other fundraising opportunities that we did last year and the beginning of this year, the school year. On the expenses side, registration, flights, hotel rooms, shirts, shuttles, group activity, and travel reimbursement. The registration, we save $35 per person by doing early registration. So it's a little expensive, but by beating that deadline, we'll save a little bit of money. Round trip flights, again, we've been tracking it with that Google feature where it tells you when flights are the cheapest. So looking for deals, looking for patterns there. Hotel rooms, the Sheraton, I believe it shows on the next slide, does have a discount code for the conference as well as Delta Airlines with the flights. So we'll be utilizing that. Even with the discount code, the Sheraton Hotel is about equal to the hotels in the area. So doing research, finding out who's going to be the cheapest for that weekend in particular, with any deals that have come up in the meantime. With the conference shirts, this is something that we, in hindsight, had wanted to do last year. One of the events is a t-shirt competition and a t-shirt swap. Some of our members are super interested in graphic design, so bringing that to this conference, giving them the opportunity to use that skill, like actually in action, would be huge. So included that in the budget this year. Last year we asked that students provide their own transportation to the airport and then Ubered from the St. Louis airport to the hotel. This year we included the shuttle service. Assuming that will be the cheapest option, we will be researching how the Uber rates are looking, things like that, depending on when our flight gets in. If it's a peak time and the shuttle might be cheaper, we'll go that route. Group activity, like the last year we did a group activity and we found it a really useful tool in the middle of the conference to get together, kind of discuss what we were learning, see how we wanted to implement that when we got back.
That's time.
Okay.
Is that it?
Ooh, we have a lot to talk about. That's almost it.
Is there a motion to extend the time by 5 minutes?
I think I covered everything really shortly. In that last slide, it was just an elaboration on where we were cutting costs, how we were saving a little bit of money. The point system. Sorry.
Could you tell me a little bit more about your point system?
Yes, thank you so much for asking. I really appreciate you. So, with the cost, it's expensive to get to New Orleans. We are asking students to contribute by their meals, paying their membership fee, and paying for anything outside of the conference, obviously. But in the meantime, we're tracking what events students are helping with the club, how they're doing fundraising with us, and those points go towards fund allocation. So the money that's given to the club is allocated to our members based on how involved they are. And the point breakdown is on this slide.
Thank you.
And so you have 10 committed students, or is that increase?
Right now, we have 18 committed students with the new students who came in. So the list on the bottom has increased to that full 18 at the moment.
Have you prepared for the possibility of the S&A committee not fully funding this event?
In that event, we would, again, with the point system, use the club funds we had. We're also applying for funds from the other organizations, SAS and Club Council, Club Senate, Fund Council, whatever they're going for right now. And in that case, the point system will come into effect. We will use what club funds we can and allocate those resources to whoever would like to still go at that point. And they will be asked to contribute other portions towards the trip.
It says here on do you have an ASCW club account? Amount in your club account is $9,241. And if you were to request money from the Funds Council, I imagine that $2,000 would come from that? Or is that $2,000 separate of what they have in their club account?
Nice.
So club council is, think of it as the AICW club funding.
Okay.
So that would be different than their actual club account.
And the amount in the club account does include the amount we fundraised. It's in that lump sum.
So, that being said, why are you not using the funds from the club account to help cover part of the cost of all of the trip itself for 18 students to go?
Based on the years past we've gone, we spoke with Terry Wilson?
Yeah.
We all call her Terry. About years past, how they've done it. This was her recommendation. That also gives us a little bit of fallback if there isn't enough funding to be able to take more students and provide them more funding or bring in speakers.
So am I understanding it correctly that you've got the 9,000 in your club account, but you're using essentially 4,000-ish of it because the gorge, all of these fundraisings, they're in that club account, they're
Yes.
part of that? And
part
the
of-
2,000 club fund contribution is also coming from that
Yes.
9,000? Okay.
Funds council is totally separate from club accounts. So their funding request from club council has nothing to do with their club balance.
The club.
But the club
Oh,
contribution
Okay.
is coming from theirs.
It just happened to be the same number. Yes.
Okay.
So,
Now question. So, and I guess kind of what I think is being alluded to is knowing you're using just over 3,000 of that 9,000. Is there a plan right now for that money that the club is planning on using that for the rest of the year? I know you said if you don't get funding, obviously this would be the fallback to use it, but is there other plans throughout the year for that other $5,000?
Yes and no. We have a lot of ambitions at the moment for club trips, and we know as students, it'd be easier for us to all get in one van and do that versus different cars, cost-wise. Cold head. So with that, we do plan on doing things, and we don't have everything planned out exactly. And going again with the recommendations from Terry for the fund request for this year.
Josh.
There's a proposal last week that gave some retention rates on students that attended a conference and then came back and they either persisted at Central or graduated from Central. You had mentioned the club going to this conference multiple years. Do you have any idea of similar retention rates of participants going to this particular conference? Are they continuing at Central? Are they graduating at a higher rate?
I am not aware of any rates at the moment. Most of our students who are going are already in their junior or senior years because they are in a college of business, they're already declared. But I will look into it. I know we had a handful of students who went last year, and the number I can't remember, who did graduate at Central at the end of the year.
Great, thanks.
Jessica.
How many students are going to second or? So last year, Isabel, Jacob, Christian, myself, Jajin, Victor, of us went last year who will be returning again this year. Other members either didn't feel like they had been included in the club long enough to go to the trip, which we worked really hard to do that inclusion part this year, or are new members this year in their junior or senior year.
Are there any more questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. We'll go on.
Thank you.
So now on to 2015, the Santa Barbara Shootout Tournament from the Women's Lacrosse Club for $6,000.
Okay. I'm Darcy Higley. I'm the president of the Women's Lacrosse Club.
My name is Riley Weimer. I am the VP of the Women's Lacrosse Club.
We were here last year presenting for the same shootout tournament. However, past was closed a month ago, and unfortunately, the funds that we were allocated, we didn't get to use because the trip was canceled. So that was a sad day, but here we are again. So who we are, this year we've actually grown more. Last year we had 16 members. This year we've grown to 24. 22 members will be going to the tournament, which is 6 more than we expected or had last year. And then we're a very active sports club team, as you're going to see coming up. And then we compete. Our season is during the winter quarter, like January through March. This season is. And then we complete the NWWLL Division II League, and then we're very active community members, as you see in the slide. Okay, so what we are looking to do, we're looking to go to the Santa Barbara Shootout Tournament, and that is in Santa Barbara, California. We'll be leaving Thursday, February 13th, playing the 14th, 15th, and 16th. We're guaranteed 3 games when we're down there. And then we could be competing against NCAA Division I or Division II teams. So getting a lot of outreach to other universities and even countries. There's some teams that come from Japan to the tournament. And then our goal is to grow women's lacrosse at CWU and then around Washington State as we try to do ourselves through running camps over the summer. We'll get to. But yeah, we want to, our goal for CWU is to make other countries, states, and schools around the world aware of who Central Washington University is. So here are some of the teams that are going to be playing at Santa Barbara. So we've got Duke, we've got Stanford, and then the Kansai, that's a Japanese team coming from Japan. So that's a huge outreach for Central Washington University. That'd be exciting if we got a chance to play. So just looking at the total trip budget, I think what you're looking at, there's a little bit of a difference because we had last year S&A was going to be covering airfare. This year we're looking for, Sports Club is covering our airfare, and they've already allocated us $5,000 for that, with the flexibility possibly more since we didn't get to use the funds that we were allocated last year. So funding from S&A will be going to our lodging, registration, rental cars while we're down there, so kind of ground transportation when we're there. And it's a lot more expensive this year because we had added 6 more members. So airfare is more expensive because there's 6 additional members, and the lodging rooms and everything once we're down there. And so what we're asking from S&A is $6,000 to cover lodging and transportation when we're in Santa Barbara, so that we can compete at NCAA Division I and Division II level, grow the sport of lacrosse not only at CWU but in Washington State, and give exposure to our university and the community of Ellensburg, to different states, schools, and even other countries. And we want to represent CW at a national level. What we've done to raise money, like I said, we run summer camps around the state. Toma, Bethel, South Kitsap, Puyallup, and Lake Taps. We get those girls from all around those areas coming to our summer camps. You'll see some pictures here in a moment. We sell merchandise. We have sunglasses, t-shirts, and stickers that we've sold over the years. We did a takeover at Cornerstone Pie last year. It took place after we presented, but that was a few $100s. It wasn't the biggest fundraiser for us, but helped a little bit. Then we received donations from the McElvaney's. It was a family that we had a player that played for us. We got a donation from our family. And then this year we are planning to run a SNAP fundraiser. It's something that a lot of our girls are familiar with on our team. So it's something where it's you're sending out emails to places like Nike, Under Armour, Microsoft, Amazon. You're just sending out emails and just asking for donations humbly. And then we usually, to cut costs, we sometimes find host families when we travel during our season play to have host families and cutting costs to stay instead of having to pay for hotels. So these are summer camps. They've actually been growing over the years. So I think even we don't have a picture from this year, but the groups are even getting bigger each and every year. So here's just a little kind of snapshot of what goes on. It's always nice weather, so it's great lacrosse weather in the summertime. And then this is our fundraising, recruiting, and tabling. We are very active in recruiting. Women's lacrosse is one of the fastest growing sports in all of the nation, and she can even vouch that she was a student that came to Central because of lacrosse, correct? She wanted to play lacrosse at Central, so she came here. We've even had girls transfer from other universities because they want to play for our team. So we've been making an impact, and we're getting girls coming to the university from how successful our team is going, and we put in the work and effort to do so. Here's our community service. Like I said, we're active community members. This is actually an annual community service event that we do. It's Ann Norris, very sweet lady. We've been going back, cleaning her yard for 2-3 years now, or 2 years. And then extra activities, we do workouts that we set up through the recreation center. And we've got just team events. We have the annual men's versus women's lacrosse Halloween game, team meetings, team bondings, and Chop Talk. And then we were voted for Sports Club of the Year through the Rec Center and Sports Club, so that was a good job on our part for being Sports Club of the Year, which was awesome. And then just some unexpected expenses that we have had over the course of last year and this year because we have been growing. We've had to get more jerseys because of the growing numbers, we don't have enough. And then team gear, sticks, goggles, helmets, we have had to buy some additional, especially helmets is a big one with concussions. And those are a big expense. They're about $150 for each helmet. So unexpected. We never know what players we're going to get, what injuries they've had, and we'd like to support by getting them the gear that they properly need. And then, yeah, it's due to new players joining the team. We do travel and cut costs. We take minivans, so we do rent through Enterprise. We sometimes do take personal cars just to make up for some of those costs. If it's just like to Seattle for a day trip, we most likely just use personal cars rather than spending our money on minivans. Like I said, we sometimes find host families that can host us, which we are planning on most likely doing. We travel over to Santa Barbara the day before we take off in Seattle. And then we have been getting discounted jerseys because of our team gear that we sell through BSN. They give us a discount for running our team gear through their sales department. And so this is our team, and that's actually, so these are our new jerseys. They look awesome. And we're all matching, as some of these you don't see, we're all matching with some of these. So our team can only grow from here with help from S&A. Thank you for your time.
Any questions?
Can you go back to the budget one on there? I think it was the same numbers, but I think it was roughly a little bit different.
It's different,
the
yes.
funding was coming from.
Where it was allocated.
And so I know you said on here for Airfare Sports Club was covering that, but I know what it has on here is you requested 5,000.
Yes.
I mean, where's the other 2,500 coming from? I think you mentioned that you might be able to get more.
Yeah, and it's also dependent on how expensive the plane tickets are going to be at the time, because last year we were very lucky to get the funds back that we spent because we did buy airfare last year, so this year we're going to have to buy insurance so that we don't have to go through the hassle of badgering them to give us our money back because we didn't get to go. So that's just with the flexibility of not knowing how much airfare is going to be, and sports clubs did say they're going to have flexibility on that 5,000 since we didn't get to use the funding from last year. So sports clubs will be covering airfare no matter the cost.
Where it falls.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on this next week.
Thank you.
Now on to other business, communications received. Obviously, I haven't done anything.
I've not received any.
And then we'll take a second for public comment, second call. Joey?
And I just feel weird putting these in public comment because I feel like they're more advisory notes, but I'll throw them in at this part so I don't forget next week. I'll still try to remember next week. The one part I would say is, again, I appreciate you all, and I know this is a very thoughtful committee, and some of our, not all of our members are here, and that you all put a lot of thought. The one part I would recommend is, especially if you're not in agreement or dissenting on funding something, it would be helpful to have that as part of the discussion. Simply because, again, if you're in agreement and someone says, I think this is great funding, please don't everyone say that repetitively. But when we get to a situation to where individuals are choosing not to vote for it, but there's been no one saying the rationale for why, it can make it somewhat challenging, not only for the other members to know, because you may have gotten other people who would have agreed with you, but I think also for the funding groups to know where there was, if there was something different they could have done coming forward, because we do get a lot of repeat individuals, as many of you know. So I would just recommend, if you are dissenting and no one has said why, please feel free to speak up to share that, because there may be some pieces others need to be aware of or not within that, but just for the sake of the whole group to be on the same page and know where we're at.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Eric?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Moved by Eric, seconded by Jessica. All those for? Against? Abstaining? Meeting adjourned at 6:42.